Let's do it. It's 2:02. So more people come in. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your afternoon with us. It's Wednesday. I just said it was Tuesday, but it's Wednesday. But good afternoon. Thank you very, very much for joining us. I can see the number of participants is still skyrocketing, but I don't want to waste anyone's time. So let's get things going. So hello, very warm welcome to you all, and welcome to IAB Europe's virtual CTV event. My name is Brian Martin, and I head up the marketing solutions team for EUI at TikTok. As well, I chair the IAB Europe's brand advertising committee, and I am really thrilled to be here and to be your moderator for today's event. And thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're an IAB member or part of the wider digital advertising community, this event brings together an incredible mix of professionals from across the digital marketing ecosystem. As many of you are aware, IAB Europe is the premier European level association for digital marketers and advertising. With its wide membership of national associations, media, technology, and marketing companies, its mission is to lead political representation and foster collaboration across Europe. Today's event is a reflection of that mission, bringing together experts and innovators and thought leaders to explore the crucial developments in the ever-evolving connected TV space. It's really important that we host today's event. And connected TV is an increasingly vital part of the digital advertising landscape. Connected TV viewership has surged across Europe and, of course, around the globe, becoming a core channel for content consumption. As viewers switch away from traditional TV to more streaming platforms, connected TV represents a dynamic opportunity for advertisers to reach audiences in new and innovative ways. However, as this ecosystem evolves, so do the challenges around privacy, around consent, and of course around measurement. Add that to high levels of market fragmentation, which we see today. And that's why the IAB Europe is dedicated to supporting our members and the wider industry by hosting events just like this. We want to provide a platform for open dialogue and debate on the latest trends, the latest opportunities and challenges in the connected TV space. By sharing these insights, by sharing these best practices, and by sharing innovative solutions, we hope to drive the industry forward together with you all. This is an annual event and offers a unique opportunity for you to hear from some of the brightest minds in our industry, to explore key issues and to explore trends, and to network with peers as we collectively navigate the future of connected TV. I'd like to therefore extend a huge thank you to our speakers and our panelists today for sharing their time and their expertise. Every one of them is part of the IAB Europe. And if you're interested in learning more about how to get involved with future activities, please feel free to reach out to Helen or any other member of the IAB Europe team. And once again, a massive thanks to Helen and Amy and the team for hosting and putting on this event today. There's a lot of hard work goes into it, so thank you very much. Right then, let's have a look at the agenda. We have an action-packed agenda filled with top-tier speakers and moderators, and here's what we'll be diving into. So first up, we'll be looking at privacy and consent in connected TV. It's a critical topic as data regulations continue to evolve in our industry. Following that, we'll then be looking to the shift in streaming to discuss how consumer habits are driving change in content delivery and also in advertising models. Following that, we'll turn our attention to focus on the new European markets, examining how the expansion of connected TV across Europe and the unique dynamics it offers in different regions. Finally, we'll close with an important conversation on connected TV metrics and outcomes. This panel will feature industry leaders sharing insights and best practices for measurement, attribution within the connected TV space. It's going to be a really insightful few hours packed with expert perspectives, so I please encourage you to take full advantage of the opportunity to engage, ask questions, and learn from our speakers. There will be some Q&As, so when they're available, please do click the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Now, there's a couple of housekeeping points that I'd like to run through with you all, if that's okay, so please do listen in. We are live today. We are live, and to get a better understanding of our audience, I want to take a bit of a quick poll to see who's out there, who I'm speaking to in the Zoomiverse. So if you could take a moment to complete that poll that's on your screen, I will share the results very, very shortly. So please do take a moment to do that. And as I said, you can participate by using the Q&A function at the bottom of the window. And lastly, this session is being recorded. So if you are You do need to pop off. You do need to jump to another meeting at any point. We'll miss you, but the content will be shared afterwards, as well as summaries on our website in the coming days. Okay, let's see those all-important poll results. It's not just me sat in a meeting room. Who have we got? 46% of you are from AdTech. I know the polls results have disappeared. Could you bring them back, please, Amy? Thank you. Oh, there's one again. So 46% of you in AdTech. We've got a couple of advertisers in, lots of agencies. Welcome to you all. Some media and press, welcome. So lots of people. A lovely split across the room. Thank you very much for sharing that with me, and thank you for getting involved in the poll. Always great to know who we're speaking to, and for our panelists to know as well, so they can make sure they reflect anything that might be particularly relevant to those audience segments. So, right, thank you very much for that poll. I think we are ready to get started. So, let's bring our first speaker onto the panel, and it's Colombe, who is the new Products and Services Director from IAB Europe. Colombe is going to be discussing privacy and consent within connected TV, and I will throw over to you to introduce your wonderful panel. Colombe, able to come onto the virtual stage?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I had a connectivity issue for 1 second, just at the very timely moment. Thank you for bearing with me. I have to say I'm very excited to be kickstarting today's event, which is growing in popularity from what I hear. You know, as Ryan said, connected TV evolves at a very fast pace, and with all the developments currently happening across digital and linear channels. You know, right now in this panel, we will discuss specifically CTV and privacy. And according to the ADEX report that was presented last May at Interact, CTV continues to grow around 23.5%, if I'm not mistaken. And at the same time, privacy does remain a critical area for all the digital advertising industry players. So today we are diving into the regulatory environment surrounding CTV, exploring consent, privacy disclosures, user experience challenges, and all sorts of other emerging you know, opportunities. So we will look into you know, providing insights on how we increase or continue to build trust while we ensure compliance, and at the same time still optimizing for campaign effectiveness. Myself, I had the chance to look at CTV CMPs a while ago as part of the TCF compliance work, and I'm quite happy, or actually quite looking forward to discussing how things have been evolving in the space. And for this discussion, I'm happy to introduce the three panelists that will share the floor this afternoon. First of all, Stefania Radzivonik, Director Partnership Supply EMEA at Verve. Davide Rosamilia, VP of Product at ID5. And Jan Winkler, CEO of Consent Manager, a very long-standing member of TCF instances. So without further ado, we can jump right in with the first question for this panel today. What are CTV players doing now to address privacy? Do they provide transparency disclosures, and do they collect consent from their users? All of these questions we want to hear from the panelists, but also we want to know if the practices have evolved in the last year. So maybe we can start with you, Stefania. What do you think?
Very nice to meet you all. Definitely, I would like to mention that moving from traditional TV to digital one has made TV planning, activation, and measurement more complex. And of course, in that context, individual tracking with use of personal data has started to be frequently employed. All of this is, of course, with the goal to deliver cutting-edge targeting and effective performance analysis. Unsurprisingly, it brought concerns around user privacy and data protection. As one of the first options, deeper consideration of every privacy-related decision was suggested for media companies. Of course, in line with its market position, data usage in context of business value versus privacy cost, and compliance with regional regulations. But while all these steps seem theoretically relevant, they are too complex for CTV. In practice, future-proof growth of CTV will call for standardized and privacy-safe identity management approaches. And here, it should be highlighted that the understanding of the privacy-safe environment itself has been already undergoing dramatic, but without any doubts, positive changes. So let's remind us that we started from not collecting at all any consent in CTV space, then we moved to Boolean consent, and now we are requiring TCF and IAB compliant consent to apply for CTV space as well. I think definitely more to come here.
Thank you, Stefania. Davide, do you have, what's the point of view from your company?
We work a lot with publisher directly, and CTV publisher have gone through tremendous changes, I would say, over the past year. A little bit echoing what Stefania said, there has been a change from not having any form of consent required from apps, OEM or OTT, to moving towards consent maybe baked into determined condition. And more recently, I would say, the majority of the player have CMP, which are IAB compliant and therefore release a TCF string, which can then be used across the supply chain. Obviously, these often come from challenges because a lot of the publishers come potentially from a more linear background. So there has been first an education that they've had to do internally, and then also a education to the industry, because it's very difficult to have an individual consent on a CTV level, right? It's mostly a household level consent. And then when we also look at the technicality itself, it's quite complex to provide the same granularity of consent to the user because just of the user experience, for example, or just the way that it gets interacted with consumers and medium. So definitely there has been a lot of progress. I think that there is still a need for a little bit of standardization though.
Thank you, Davide. Yeah, indeed. I mean, the user experience is quite different from, on CTV when you compare it to mobile or web. How is that different? Why is collecting consent so different? What are your thoughts? Maybe Jan, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So from a CMP perspective, I mean, there's obvious differences, right? You have a bigger screen on a TV, and you have a small screen and on a mobile. You have a back channel, meaning you can use your hand, your gestures, these kind of things. You have buttons. While on a TV, you usually have a remote. Modern remotes have mouser-like kind of behavior, but it's still not the same. You don't really point at the right thing. So there's a bit more UX challenges that you have to touch the right element and to get on the right elements. And therefore, the design of the consent layer or the consent window needs to be usually bigger, more user-friendly, not so much details, not so many options. And then there's just let's say, I don't want to say environmental, but on where you watch these things or where you see these things, meaning TV is usually a darker surroundings. You maybe sit in your bed or something at night. So the contrast is a bit different. You would have a darker background, bright text on it, while on a mobile, a bright background doesn't hurt, right? You have a white background, black text, these kind of differences. So there's, from the user experience perspective, huge differences on both ends, which will then translate into design choices that you would do or would do differently.
Yeah, and also from a consent point of view, you're collecting consent for multiple people, right? It's a household, there are multiple people. Yeah, how do we do that? Do we personalize more? Do we personalize less? Davide, what do you think?
I mean, the confusion, not even a confusion, I would say that the issue here come from the legislation perspective, right? GDPR always talk about personal data. There is no definition of household data, right? It's just considered another form of personal data. So it doesn't get treated differently from a regulatory perspective, how we collect consent or how consent get processed. What does change, though, is all the technique behind it. For example, how do we handle opt-out? On the web, it's very simple. You opt out the user, it might be a cookie or it might be at a user level, depends on how you approach the problem. At a household, when you go to CTV, you can't opt out a specific user. You have to opt out the whole household. And I know that there are different, to your point, Colum, profiles that you can have, within different apps, which could theoretically give a more idea of an individual, but in practice, the majority of the population doesn't use them. It's maybe for children and parental control, in which case we shouldn't collect the data anyway, which is a different story. And so it just added a layer of complexity to the industry, especially for ad tech intermediaries that provide the technology on how do we handle all of our obligation, not from a user perspective anymore, but from the whole household itself.
Stefania, I think there's quite a big shift on the way, specifically from the user experience. What do you see in your space?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe something to add to the previous question also, as we've been focused on the emerging channels, responsible, sustainable, and privacy-safe advertising across multiple platforms, we also see that media owners found the way out and started to redirect users from smart TV environment to websites or apps to collect consent in easy way. But as Davide also mentioned, unfortunately, it still brings challenges when it comes to opt-out options. So what we are seeing is definitely a big shift in personalization, and where the question of addressability in a privacy-safe environment has been already more frequently raised by both marketers and publishers. Privacy-safe is definitely a good, but at the same time, as per Verve Addressability Report, 44% of publishers and media companies have already acknowledged that there is a decrease in their ability to monetize their unaddressable audiences. So currently what we are seeing is that publishers and media companies are relying more on contextual targeting and third-party cookies if we talk about web. Also, if we look into CTV, let's say specifically in a multi-platform prism, we are seeing that in the next 6 or 12 months, more than 30% of the companies expecting to begin to use publisher-provided IDs, Google Privacy Sandbox solutions, seller-defined audiences, and universal IDs. So without any doubts, we are seeing that there is a strong focus on contextual and leveraging first-party data. And this is becoming key areas in terms of personalization change.
Thank you, Stefania. So, it's quite hard to come up with a good CTV CMP. What would you say, Jan, what would you say stands out when it comes to actually, designing the right solution? I think you touched upon that a bit earlier as well, but in terms of consent, what do you think stands out in terms of really having a good CTV CMP?
First of all, I mean, the definition of good, so to say, is always a bit of a struggle. You have clients that focus, let's say, that have a stricter view on the law. Some have a less strict view and focus a bit more on the marketing side, so to say. So there's not really a clean line where you say, okay, that's a best practice, or that's a best practice. It's more individual on the clients, what they want to achieve. Simple things like a reject button on the first layer will lead to rejection rate, but some clients have the interpretation of the law that a reject button might not be necessary, for example. So these kind of decisions can make a big influence on the results that you get, and from the legal perspective, from the UX perspective, from the acceptance rates, maybe even bounce rates, things like users not using the app just because they are annoyed. Just a practical example from my TV. Every day when I watch a certain TV app, I get asked every day again if I want to accept. So it's just a technical thing that doesn't really work well, right? So these kind of things can make a big difference. In the end, what we recommend from a CMP perspective is testing, meaning different devices, different screen sizes, different in TV you have different TV what they're called manufacturers, etc. But also different design options. Usually when we look at clients that test different designs, we see that the clients that actually test something in average achieve a higher acceptance rate, usually something like 15%, compared to the clients that don't test at all. So really just doing a bit more, testing a bit more can make a huge impact.
Yeah, that's a great advice. More testing and multiple interfaces to play with. So now looking a bit at the future, everything is evolving super fast and we all have to adapt. But now can you foresee what's going to happen in the next year or 2 years regarding CTV? And what do you think the trends are going to be? Davide, do you want to try and take a stab at that one?
Sure. I mean, obviously, many different directions. I see the overall CTV industry going, but when we look specifically at privacy and identity, I would say that we will probably see a more standardized approach in terms of framework on how to collect consent, how to distribute consent, and how to handle regulation CTV, not just in Europe, but also outside of it. And then we will probably see a trend in which we will see IP address being less and less used. Today, IP addresses are very often used for targeting and other use cases, just because it's an easy available signal to use. And we will see a shift more towards universal IDs, which are not just more stable and scalable, but also are better from a privacy safety for the user. And then as the last trend, I think that, we will see the remaining publishers that are still in the process of adopting consent or privacy framework to probably standardize the same way that we saw the TCF adoption in the web going.
Stefania, what do you think?
Totally agree with Davide. And maybe also to add here, I believe that cohort-based method would provide ways for media owners of accessing device data to make smart segmentation of their audience on the basis of anonymized interest or characteristics. In other words, I believe that contextual advertising would thrive in the future. Also, seller-defined audiences would help to create targetable audience groups for publishers. So definitely first-party data leveraging would also play an important role in the future of CTV. From the measurement perspective, if we, let's say, address addressability, it seems like still brand uplift, conversion studies, panel-based ad ratings, statistic sampling, and media mix modeling would remain the most privacy-conscious CTV choices. However, of course, it's to be confirmed in the next few years as a CTV space is improving and developing pretty fast.
So Davide, you mentioned more standardization for CTV. And recently, there was an update to the technical specs of the TCF specifically for CTV. The standard naming conventions for storing the TC string, to be exact. How did the specs help overcome some of the previous challenges? And what are the remaining challenges now with the CTV in terms of standardization?
I would say that. Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
I was saying that the standardization challenges are not that much into the technical framework now. Definitely is definitely a more welcome update, I would say. But the challenges are more in adoption of the different framework, right? We know that adoption at the beginning is very slow. I mean, we're seeing it with TCF2 and TCF 2.2. It will take quite a while. It's also on the differentiation between, as you were saying before, household versus individual, and how do all the different player approach a consent that is provided household level and all the relevant obligation versus a consent at an individual level and relevant obligation. And I don't think that every player in the industry has taken the same route. So there is probably a need for more standardization in the view there, which can come from the IAB on one side or from the regulator in the other.
Jan, you actually participated in the Framework Signals Working Group where they, I think, discussed these updates. What are your views on that?
Yeah, I mean, updates or technical specifications are relevant and necessary, especially or also in CTV, especially in CTV when we have so many different formats, so many different technical frameworks that we need to deal with. Things like Android and WebOS and iOS logic, so many different things. So a technical framework really helps to ensure that everybody is getting a similar experience and everybody getting the same results, getting the same signals. The main challenge that we see is really a bit that David already said. It's the adoption. Clients have a hard time to navigate through all these different device types and different operating systems, etc. And it takes a lot of time for them to get there, to understand, and to implement. So that's where maybe we can improve a bit in the future. But at least that's where standardization also helps. So to say, we need to try to find a middle ground. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That gives really an interesting perspective on that and what how much work there is still to be done as well. Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting from your point of view, to know what words of advice you'd give to the CTV players in the market. We have many of them are on the call now. Stefania, words of wisdom.
Yeah, definitely. So my word of advice could be sum up as innovation for CTV players. So definitely interactive elements such as QR codes, shoppable, and SK overlay ads would help to enable for CTV players greater audience engagement, brand connection, and return on investment. As well, I think innovative experimentation with ACR, next generation contextual advertising, and attention-based measures would definitely have far-reaching implications for the entire industry.
What's your view, Davide?
I mean, from my side, probably aligned with what Stefania said, I would say is start to adopt the technologies that are available. Don't just wait for, self-regulatory enforcement or in general, just peer pressure from the industry, but start to be at the forefront and standardize. Talk to your fellow publisher, to your ad tech player, and to the buy side, and just make sure that you all use the same language in order to trade media and measure it as well.
What about you, Jan? What do you think?
Yeah, the word of advice I would give is basically start early with the adoption. As I said, there's so many different systems, different logic out there. It will take time, so plan ahead and start early. The same with new standards. When there is a new standard, there's usually a time frame before it's launching, so to say. So again, don't wait until the data's there, but start early implementing. And the other thing from the UX perspective, as I said before, testing is always recommended. It can really help. So that would be my 2-3 points. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we sort of have now a bit more time, just a couple of minutes maybe for questions. Ryan, what do you think? Do we have time?
I think we were due to wrap up at past, so I think we might have to call it there to keep conscious of the panelists we've got coming on. But thank you so much, Colin, and an amazing panel. Thank you for taking on to that. Very much appreciated. Thank you to Colin and the panel there. A really enlightening discussion around the importance of privacy and consent in connected TV. I think what's really clear from that session is that compliance and trust are always paramount in this growing space. And we really appreciate our speakers sharing their time and their expertise on this critical topic. So thank you so much to our panelists for your incredibly valuable insight. Okay, next session, the shift to streaming. This session is going to focus on the biggest transformation in the way consumers access content. So Connected TV has ushered a significant shift from traditional television to streaming platforms, transforming how audiences consume content, but also how advertisers reach them. This panel will explore the driving forces behind the migration to streaming, examining key trends, audience behaviors, and the implications for advertisers. Industry leaders will discuss the opportunities and challenges in this evolving landscape, and attendees will learn how to leverage this shift to streaming to create a more personalized and effective campaign that engages today's viewers. So I'm very pleased to welcome to the panel the moderator of this session, Alex Ong, who is the Director of Business Development at Magnite. Welcome, Alex. I will hand over to you to introduce your esteemed panel.
Great. Thanks so much, Ryan. Good afternoon and welcome to today's second session, the shift into streaming. As mentioned, I'm Alex Ong. I lead business development for Magnite across their EMEA business. Very excited to go through this panel today. We've got some really expert opinions and expert people on. I will get them to introduce themselves from Stephanie to Karsten and finally Seth. Oh, I think we might still be waiting for them to come on.
I think sometimes guiding people through the Zoom, backstage Zoom can be a challenge. So we'll just give them a couple of minutes as they come onto screen now. Hopefully Amy and team will be able to find them.
Great.
Yeah, it's Sebastian now.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, good afternoon.
I think we're just waiting for Karsten. Oh, there we are. Great.
Hello, everyone.
Perfect. We got everyone on now. Yes, so if we can kick it off with some intros, name and where you guys work and kind of a little bit about your businesses, that would be fantastic. Stephanie, let's start off with you.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Alex, for introducing us. So hi, I'm Stephanie Brake. I'm glad I'm here, and I actually made the video work, so that's a highlight. I work at Audience Express. I head up the UK sales team, and Audience Express, for those of you who don't know, is part of Freewill of Comcast, and we are essentially the media sales arm, selling our CTV and premium video offering into agencies and brands.
Great. Seth?
Hi, I'm Sebastian Seb, working for RTL Airlines in our partnership development team, mainly focusing on expanding the international RTL Airlines portfolio with broadcasters, streamers, to support them in incremental ad revenues.
Finally, Karsten.
Yes, hello from Berlin, Germany. My name is Carsten Müller. I'm leading media sales for Google's DSP, Display Video 360 in Central Europe. In my day-to-day job, I work with many major advertisers and agencies who buy media on our platform. And let me say that as an intro, is the perfect timing from my point of view to discuss this with all of you, as I think we reached a tipping point for CTV advertising. I see huge opportunities for advertisers and businesses alike in the ecosystem. So thank you very much for having the opportunity to be on this panel with you.
Great. So kicking it all off, what do you think are the primary factors driving the migration from traditional TV to streaming platforms? And how are these influencing the audience behavior and content consumption patterns? I think all of you would have great opinions on this, but let's kick it off with you, Seb.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would like to have a broader answer to that, because we're always differentiating between the streaming world and the broadcaster world. I think looking on to what broadcasters do at the moment is also becoming streamers. And I think that is what we need to also keep in mind, that there's not this world and that world. With all the investments we are seeing currently from broadcasters investing heavily in BVOD platforms, contents, and also what we see, and that's an interesting fact, is the partnerships that big streamers are currently doing with broadcasters. Like yesterday, we just heard the announcement of Pluto TV partnering with M6 in France, which I think shows the massive trend. We could somehow call it consolidation, or the real merge of the broadcasting world and the streaming world.
Cool. What about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, I think what Seb just described on the broadcaster world moving into streaming describes very well what's happening in terms of content. So there's a lot more content available on different streaming platforms, whether it's on their own platforms or on pure new streaming platforms. Thinking back a few years ago, another factor was probably the move away from paid TV into something that was free, advertising supported. So that there's multiple factors. I don't think we can just name one primary factor, but a lot of factors. And then one thing that we don't necessarily mention often enough, but also OEMs had a lot to do with how the streaming experience itself has evolved and has gotten better. So I think also some of the younger audiences who were very much accustomed to a mobile phone and app-based usage have easily gone over to the massive screen that looks a bit like a phone. So that app usage has been almost seamless for them. So there's all these developments almost simultaneously that allow more and more streamers to come onto these platforms, and it's a huge opportunity for advertisers to tap into.
Cool. And then something you wanted to add to that, Carsten?
Certainly. I would see three major factors driving the trend to streaming. And the first I would like to highlight is, I would call that emancipation of the viewer. So I decide when I want to watch, whereas in the past, a series started at 8 p.m. sharp for everyone, right? And I decide what to watch. So this is a new, very personal decision that viewers can take. And secondly, and Steph elaborated on that already, but I want to highlight it again here because it's so important. It's the choice of content is here like never before. So we see an increasing amount of incredible content on a lot of different platforms, locally and globally. For example, broadcaster offerings like Join here in Germany, next to global players like Disney+, Netflix, or YouTube, of course. And this trend is certainly supported by the fact that all major platforms have launched or are preparing their launch of ad-supported subscriptions. And the third fact to name here, a lot of this incredible content is multi-device and multi-format today. And that definitely pushes streaming. So what I mean by that, the series that I started to watch yesterday evening on the big screen, I'm able to continue to watch on the train, on my mobile the next day. And more users are watching short form content. Creators and publishers are building on that. And that's a great example how the ecosystem is adapting to this changing audience behavior. This is definitely the new normal for younger audiences, but it's increasingly true for older generations as well, myself included.
Yeah, I definitely see it on our end as well. Just the different distributions that broadcasters are really looking at enhancing, whether it's via fast channel adoption or enhancing their VOD services. It's a really interesting time, and definitely the multi-device cross-channel viewership is something that I think that is being embraced by pretty much all generations. But coming back to you again, Carsten, how do you think advertisers can effectively adapt their strategies to engage audiences who are increasingly obviously turning to these streaming platforms that we just discussed? And what unique opportunities does this shift really represent?
Yeah, I mean, to understand the new opportunities, we have to bear in mind where advertising actually comes from. Yeah, we come from a world where advertisers targeted one big message to a mass audience, not really addressable, not really measurable. But luckily, most of the environments that viewers spend time with these days are digital and can be addressed programmatically. And that leads to unique opportunities for media campaigns. Yeah, campaigns can be planned more meaningfully. Audiences become more addressable, measurable. And in this new world, there's frequency optimization. So advertisers can reduce overexposure. They get more reach for the same media invest. So there's a clear opportunity for smarter and more effective campaigns, if you want to put it like that. To the second point of the question, my advice for advertisers, ask yourself, does your budget allocation really reflect where you find your audiences today and where you will find them in the future? And when tapping into these new opportunities, let technology help you. It's complicated, yeah? Let technology help you, and that can be a central buying platform like DV360.
Great. Anything, Seb or Stephanie, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I can definitely add to that. I think what we've been talking over the last years in any CTV conferences is definitely advertisers having the chance to optimize their reach, and not just a chance, but actually almost an obligation, because a lot of advertisers realize that they're not reaching all of their audiences just through linear TV, but very much had to extend onto CTV campaigns. And that's why CTV in a media plan has earned its line itself. And outside of reach, I think there's also something called effective reach, which is essentially optimizing the frequencies. You might have a light TV viewer who you have reached once on a linear TV campaign, but the message has not hit yet. So you need to reach them again and maybe 4 more times on a streaming platform. And that's something that more of our advertisers and agency partners have understood, that it is an absolute essential part of a media planning, of a video or TV planning. And as Carsten said, the targeting options are much more granular, and the fact that a lot of these streamers were initially already available in a programmatic space, which to programmatic buying options was absolutely essential as well.
Great. And then, Seb, what challenges, obviously we've spoken about what the advice would be for the advertisers, but what challenges do you think advertisers are facing creating a personalized and effective campaign on CTV? And how can they really overcome these obstacles to reach targeted viewers? So outside of what Stephanie just said about, looking at the effective reach, what other tools do you think that they should be utilizing?
I mean, less than talking about tools and features, and I think what Carsten and Stephanie said is like really the whole complex and comprehensive picture of what the CTV streaming world gives us, like addressability, target audiences, KPIs, or all what we are talking on our daily businesses here for all the companies we work with. But on the other hand, when we talk to the advertisers, sometimes it feels that they're overwhelmed with the complexity, with all the terms we're using, with all these new platforms, features, things that are coming up. And that is the biggest challenge they have, that they're looking for consultation support in guiding them the way through not only all the tech pieces, but there's another layer because it gets more international, and then in Europe within that fragmented market, so they have all these opportunities, they have different countries, and what they need is some sort of, I've said consolidation before, but we could also call it standardization platforms in which they can trust, and that is, I think, very important to have, and which they can trust what they buy and get what they pay for. And I think we will see more and more players being on or staying on the pitch that exactly do that. Providing the trust and visibility and transparency to advertisers. And with that, I think advertisers need to get more bold and pushy towards the tech market and to all of us here on that panel to create that easiness and simplicity.
Yeah, agreed. Anything, Carsten or Stephanie, you wanted to add to that? No. All right. Well, obviously, we've talked about the challenges, and obviously, we all agree that there needs to be some type of standardization for the advertisers because, you know, every market is very different. We have the fragmentation as just mentioned. But how do we see this evolution of audience measurement and data analytics in CTV impacting the way advertisers plan and optimize those campaigns? Steph?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we've seen, and having worked at Audience Express, I've seen the first media plans being very, oh, what is CTV? Or let's just try it out. Let's have a run-off network campaign and we'll look at VTR because that's the thing that we're most used to from a digital video campaign, to now having multiple choices of measurement. It's not a one fits all. I think something that's also very visible in the US, for example, is there are different types of measurements, and it's not just one single measurement. There are attribution studies, brand lift studies that we can now leverage in the CTV environment. There is attention metrics that we are now capable to measure in a CTV environment. And depending on the client's needs and objectives, one might fit better than the other. We've seen, going back to the point I mentioned earlier, it's gone from a very branding approach. So we would talk to advertisers who were used to TV campaigns, and therefore we thought we could convert into a CTV buy. Now also talking to brands that are more performance-based, clients who would go and buy from DRTV teams. We've had a campaign last year for a charity who ran on CTV in parallel to a linear campaign, and it turned out that their CPAs, or their cost per acquisition of donations, was actually 15% better than the linear TV campaign. So I think there has been a lot of movement, and CTV is now also used for more performance-based campaigns. If you look at a purchase funnel or the user funnel, CTV can be applied in all the different stages of the funnel. And I think that's really interesting, and definitely an area where we will see more coming with the different technologies coming up, machine learning being an essential element in that. It's a very interesting space.
And Carsten, I feel like you might have more to add around that, especially, you know, the DV360 world, seeing kind of all of it from an omni-channel perspective and kind of that shift of spend as well.
Yeah. So the aspiration, I guess, is clear to everyone here, right? We want to have a common standard, ideally, or for all platforms, one common database maybe. And today we're clearly missing this holistic picture, and we're missing that for quite some time. So the aspiration is clear. There are point solutions available today. You asked for some points that are already there, talking about DV360 maybe. There are in-platform solutions, right? There's unique reach, including reach duplication, deduplication. Other bodies have tried their early approaches successfully, like the World Federation of Advertisers approach, a multimodal standardized approach that yielded first positive results in the UK and the US. So we will see more on that front as well. Then you have smart meter approaches, single source panels, and so on. But it's not that common standard that we all wish for. So you could ask why, what's the reason for that common standard not being there yet? Just to name two maybe, so it's pretty cost intense, as we realized, as we noticed. And also looking at CTV now, the main topic of our discussion here, CTV is still a pretty young, very, very fast growing device or ad category, but again, it's still pretty young. So solutions to develop solutions in such a complex, fragmented world, such a complex, fragmented ecosystem, it just takes time. I think we're on a good way. I'm sure that we'll, looking forward, we'll have a combination of different approaches, like multimodal panel-based approaches in combination with data clean rooms where you can bring your first-party data combined with survey data, something like that. But it will take time. But it will get better since it's all digital and everybody wants that. So I'm positive about that.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's, to both of your points, it's never going to be a one size fits all. We're just in such a fragmented industry as a whole, and especially across CTV, where we've got different players from broadcasters to OEMs, that it will be challenging, and it will be kind of, you would have to look at it per partner, so to speak. Is there anything you wanted to kind of a point of view of that from Seb? I think obviously we don't know what advertisers want, and we want to be able to drive that for them. But do you see that merriment between the broadcasters and the advertisers coming together quite often, or is it a little bit miscommunicated at times?
No, I mean, I agree to what Carsten and Steffi said. I think one important point, again, I think that was mentioned again, is the need for advertisers to have more prepackaged audience buys, segments that fit to the target audience that they want to reach. And again, there, I think it's a very important challenge and task for all of us to get more simple and more accessible to advertisers.
We do have one audience question. They wanted to know what advertisers, or I guess category of advertisers, are leading the way in terms of expert and effective use of CTV along with traditional TV or media. Stephanie or Carsten or Seb, would you like to take this?
Maybe I start with that one. I would say it's not the typical top of the funnel awareness advertisers, but rather the ones that are somewhere in the middle. So it's also not the purely performance-oriented advertisers, because they're from their nature, from all their experience, and even their teams doing digital advertising, too far away from the big screen still. Yeah, they started to move there. I guess everyone is moving into that direction and playing the full funnel. But as I see it, it's the advertisers who typically in the past targeted the mid of the funnel that were keen to reach, to identify leads. There is somewhere in between the pure awareness focused advertiser and the pure performance-based advertiser. So they're moving in basically all the directions and trying to connect all the funnel steps. And they leverage all the technology that is there today. So not just using a DSP, also using their ad server, also using their web analytics tool, and connecting all those data that is there.
I can add to that. I think even though, like I said earlier, we would typically approach AV teams who would be used to TV buying and convince them with the digital advantages of a CTV campaign. So we would go after branding campaigns or advertisers that were more branding focused. But in the end, I think it's those advertisers who were willing to test something new, who would by default have a little innovation budget, and who were willing to take that step and try something new, and who were not taking the status quo for a given and that's the kind of clients that we saw coming on first. I couldn't say it's a certain industry, or it was across the industry, a little bit here, a little bit there. It wasn't, to begin with, wasn't big budgets that we would see. It was just test budgets, and then, oh, actually, that's interesting. What can we do next time? So it's those kind of clients that were open to innovation that we saw coming on first.
I would actually, I mean, we are tapping, or we are targeting TV advertisers, like also Steffi. I mean, that's, I think, what we are all after, because this is where still the big budgets are. And of course, this is a big target audience for us in terms of advertisers. And they would love to do more and spend more money on CTV. But what we see many times, especially in Europe, when they compare the opportunities in terms of scale and reach to CTV, it's sometimes disappointing to be used to the large scale and volumes they can achieve through traditional TV. And I think this also shows, and that's what Carsten mentioned, it's still very early. And I think the scale in Europe and the volumes in Europe is one key aspect where we still hopefully see a lot of increase in that area. And also there's not too much options in terms of big CTV inventory, CTV brands that really can make that scale. In the end, it goes down to 5 global players and then local BVOD players.
Yeah, so definitely still seeing some of those shifts from linear into CTV. But I think, I think what's surprising is we haven't really mentioned that SME group. While they're not, the huge budgets, they are the ones that, as Stephanie mentioned, are the ones that are, small, investing, innovating, testing, and, they're the ones that come up with those great case studies, isn't it? That say, like, this is how amazing it is, which kind of, I think, will shift that conversation at times. But as we're coming to an end, it would not be a panel without we talking about the future. So what future trends should these advertisers look out for? And how can they prepare to leverage these developments for better campaign outcomes? Obviously, this is one for all of you to answer to. So Stephanie, take it away for us.
Future trends, it's nothing new, but I think in the CTV world where we're talking about not having cookies, the contextual targeting element is going to become even more important. And in our prep panel, we talked about AI, and we don't really know what AI is going to be in the next 2 years, but perhaps AI will help us in that targeting element to have smarter capabilities in the contextual world specifically. So I think that's an area advertisers should look out for and keep their ears picked.
Sebastian?
Yeah, I think I've mentioned a lot of consolidation. Maybe I go with consolidation first, but in the meaning of that there will be solutions and platforms which allow the direct access to the inventories, meaning that there will be controlled buying platforms that are controlled by the inventory owners, either the big global streamers like Netflix or Roku or these ones, but also the broadcasters will somehow align on solutions that let advertisers tap into controlled and premium environments where they have the trusted media and KPIs they need.
And finally, what do you think, Carsten?
Yeah, I'd like to get a bit more bold and positive here, actually. So, I mean, it's early days. We already said that, yeah. We'll see an explosion of ad reach on the CTV. That's for sure. It's early stage, ad-supported tiers of streamers. They only started in Europe. Yeah, the reach is going to be much bigger in the future.
Agreed.
So CTV will be the most important screen for video ads in the future. And this will come with a lot more opportunities for advertisers. And to manage the complexity that was also discussed today, I'm absolutely confident that AI will play a major role, like in many other areas of our day-to-day lives, right? The ads business is just not an exception to what we see around us. AI is already powering many of the key features of our buying technologies today. And there's so much more in the making that we even can't think of. So today there's frequency management, there's AI powered, there's advanced custom bidding models. There's AI supporting in the field of content creation. Yeah, there are examples where AI powers video creation. And of course, AI helps to make workflows more efficient. You can already, as we speak, just put a description of your audience briefing into a platform, and it identifies reasonable and ideal targeting audience targetings. So AI is here. AI will be much bigger, and it's going to be a great future in digital marketing.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It was a really great conversation that we got to have today. I hope everyone on the panel enjoyed that. I hope you did, Ryan.
Yes, it was great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Alex, and thanks so much to the panel for sharing so much insight on this topic. It's evident that the landscape is just changing so quickly, and we've got to stay agile and keep with the changing shift of viewing habits for users and also the distribution model. So thank you, Alex, for navigating us through that. Now, moving on to our third session of the day, focused on new European markets. As connected TV continues to grow across Europe, we're seeing significant opportunities in emerging markets. However, each country and each region comes with a unique set of challenges, whether it's infrastructure, content consumption trends, or regulatory environments. Today, we'll explore how brands, platforms, and advertisers are adapting their strategies to reach audiences in these rapidly evolving markets. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Tom Hudspeth, who's the Head of Solution Development for EMEA for Group M Nexus, who will be moderating this session. Over to you, Tom, with your fantastic panel of industry leaders.
Thanks very much, Ryan. Yeah, great to be here, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I hope you've enjoyed the last couple of panels as well. Some great content there. Yeah, really good to be here. Quick intro to me. So just as Ryan says, I'm Head of Solution Development across EMEA for Group M Nexus. So I've had the lucky role to see a lot of this play out over the last few years with CTV or advanced TV across the European markets. And we've got a really great discussion lined up right now with three really good panelists who are going to talk us through. I'll ask them to introduce themselves in a second, but just to give you a little bit about what we're going to talk about. Ryan gave you some there as well, but it is all around these new European markets. So what we expect to see in terms of growth, what the opportunity is, the new European markets, but also some of the challenges that we expect to see and how we expect to be able to overcome those and take advantage of the opportunity. So great. I will ask, in fact, Katie, can we jump to you first? Do you mind giving a quick intro and then passing it on to the next would be great. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Tom, for the setup today and for moderating us. Hi, everyone. I am Katie Jones. I'm the SVP for Europe, Middle East and Africa over at Index Exchange. If anyone doesn't know us, we are a supply-side platform. And I'm based here in, I'd say, sunny London, but it's not very sunny today.
Thanks, Katie. David, over to you.
Thank you very much. And hello, everybody. My name is Dave Goddard. I'm VP of Business Development at Double Verify. Similar to Katie, if you don't know what Double Verify is, we're a ad tech company that authenticates media quality and performance for some of the world's largest brands, no matter the environment, including CTV, hence why I'm on the panel. And I've been at Double Verify for almost 5 years now, expanding partnerships with media and technology providers, improving coverage and product capabilities with a focus on CTV. And so delighted to talk about this topic today. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Last but not least, Eke, please.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for being here. So my name is Eke Hartschlag-Bohm, or as we said, Eke. I'm Regional Vice President for the Northern European markets. For the people who don't know PubMatic, we are a technology company that has started 15 years ago as an SSP, but as the market is evolving, we are as well. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you, Eki. Great. Let's jump in. So, got the first question, which I'll come to you first, David. That's okay. Is looking all around, CTV growth for the last few years. We've seen it really start to escalate over 20% last year. We're all expecting it to go even higher again this year. So we're talking primarily about new markets in this forum, but obviously there's so much that we've learned over the last few years around CTV across Europe. Really keen to get your views on how important those learnings will be for the new markets. What can we take from those, do you think, when we look beyond the core markets in Europe?
Thank you very much, Tom. And maybe looking at why people are looking to invest in CTV is a good start, because the opportunity in Europe is great. No matter the market, no matter the coverage, and it allows advertisers to reach theoretically new audiences and raise brand awareness in a cost-effective manner versus traditional linear TV, and find theoretically with the buying doors, the programmatic buying doors, and the direct buying doors, enable them to find premium inventory at scale. But kind of some of the things we were talking about, like why advertisers are investing in this space and what are the kind of the drivers and the priorities for investing for advertisers, are some of the things we should consider when looking at new markets and giving somebody advice. And Double Verify and IAB released some research, which I'll have to tout on this call, being part of the IAB, which highlighted that advertiser priorities are, or the ones we called out in the research, are delivery of TV advertising campaigns at audiences at scale. We said cost efficiencies compared to linear TV, ensuring and maintaining high quality inventory, and access to data insights. Now, if these are the kind of key focuses for why advertisers should be investing in this space, then I believe the key to enabling clients to realize these goals and expand to new markets should be focused around supporting measurement and industry standards. Because really the key to scale is ensuring that clients hit those kind of success metrics and achieve these goals outlined in this research. And this will also enable premium CTV. And I think this is one of the interesting things that we don't talk about too much, because really, who is premium CTV competing with? We focus a lot on linear TV, but actually where advertiser dollars appear to be going at this moment is in scaled social environments that enable clients to deliver reach for their video campaigns. So I think it's really important for CTV to support kind of measurement and industry standards to enable them to differentiate from other media types, but also kind of these social high-scale video environments, to show that big screen in the front room of your household or of everybody's household theoretically, is a great place to advertise a marketing message, because it doesn't only deliver reach, but it delivers impactful reach. So quite broad stroke notes there with regards to how to expand into other markets, but really supporting those industry standards and measurement is the key to success.
Yeah, absolutely agree there, David. Obviously, everyone wants their investment to be valuable, and getting that return back measurement is obviously incredibly key for that. So, very much agree.
I think
please go.
If I can build on some of the points that David made so eloquently, I think the piece we haven't really talked about so much so far is really the user, the audience, the actual end consumer, and thinking about their experience as well. So just to kind of add that layer perhaps to some of the thoughts that David shared, I think it's really important, I think, for us to learn from what's happened in some of the successful European markets already. I think one of the key learnings that we've seen is that the market can really be driven by some of the early entrants who really lean into learning much more about the user, the audience needs or requirements. I think really we're seeing that consumers want to watch the right content for them at the right time, and potentially even to continue that across other devices. David was speaking already to the fact that brands want to be able to reach the right user at the right time, with the right messaging and with the right measurement in place. So I think it's that combining of those two things is where you really get, we're seeing lots of success already. So I think it's the companies who are taking a user-centric approach in market, looking at those audience trends, and then perhaps taking a test and learn approach to how they partner with brands, with advertisers, to make sure they're delivering both the right experience for the consumer and for the brands who want to reach those consumers.
I think maybe I can add one final point here is, David, you made the point that money is going into social platforms. And one advantage that social platforms are having at the moment, which is why you're referring to measurement and standards, is they can scale easily across multiple markets by just one click. And I think as we are tech companies, our job here is to help and enable companies like yours, Tom, to just being able with one click to run a campaign across multiple markets, because this is how you can support your clients to also have scalability in a programmatic ecosystem. So TV becomes digital, and everything that has become digital in the past has become programmatic. So this is why we are here, and this is what it is about. So of course, measurement and standardization is a topic here to drive stuff. And just listen to the previous panel. It's exactly about those kind of things. And I think our job is, and this is where we see where markets have a high internet penetration or a high penetration of smart TVs. There are early adopters of what it is, but our job is to connect those markets with the technology they're having with the local landscape to a broader global ecosystem.
Agreed. Thanks, Eki, and thanks, Katie, for your thoughts as well. I think clearly measurement is super important. The standards are as well, and keeping the consumer in the front of mind and making it simple. Absolutely, this is key to anything scaling. We have to make it easy for the campaigns to flow and the value to be represented afterwards. So thanks for that. Moving on, but keeping that same topic of the consumer and thinking about the new markets in across Europe. How do we see consumer behaviors changing, or how are they different across these new markets? And if they are different, what do we think that means for us trying to drive the growth of CTV and across the new markets? Might come to you first, Katie, on this one, if that's okay.
Of course. I think it's actually really interesting if I can tie it back to something we've all spoken about in the prior question. But I think standards are something that are incredibly important when we think about the difference in consumer behavior, because you do see country by country very significant different consumer behaviors due to different diverse sort of cultural, economic, technological factors. But it's really comes down to companies like ours, like all of our panelists, to kind of figure out how we can overcome some of those differences and uniform the standards so that we can get to that ease of execution. I think probably just to make it more concrete, because we can sit here and say standards, but to kind of give a bit more of an example on this, I think live programming is probably something that poses a really big challenge for our industry at the moment, and for brands who like to reach their audiences in those key cultural moments, whether that's sporting, political, a lot going on at the moment there, all over Europe and further abroad, but also then cultural events as well. And I think we've perhaps as CTV continues to grow as an area and as a focus in our industry, that really brings more challenges around how we can handle that kind of programming, those kind of delivery. I think some of the big challenges it brings is the sort of spikes or bursts in users who all hit an ad break at the same time, and that surge being very hard to handle in terms of the programmatic pipes, in terms of the DSPs being ready for that surge, in terms of the pacing being set up correctly, and so on. And those are quite unique challenges. And at Index, we're part of the leadership of the IAB Tech Labs working group specifically for ad break management. And so we're putting together the standards for those new attributes around how live content can be handled within the OpenRTB 2.6 spec, effectively trying to standardize some of those new fields so that we can kind of get the right signals into the bid request so that the brands, well, the DSPs and then the agencies and brands that they work with understand exactly what that signal is saying, because it's only with those unified standards internationally, globally, that we're going to be able to handle some of those cultural and challenges that are brought up by live. So effectively, I think live is one where the consumer behavior might be different, right? The sport that someone's watching might be different per country. You know, not everyone is as into, you know, football or cricket as other countries. But the challenges that it brings in terms of the changes to the bid stream and how we need the standards to be able to adjust for those are kind of, the problem is the same, even if perhaps the consumer behavior is, you know, might be slightly different. So lots and lots of kind of interesting things to think about, again, with driving towards clearer standards.
Yeah, completely agree. Eki, from your perspective on this question, what do you think?
I think it is right what Katie says, and I agree with that. That is definitely the case. And I think when I look at it, I would say it's also very important that we use and leverage, besides standards, that we use and leverage the expertise of people who have knowledge in the market. So like thinking about that, coming from an agency background, have worked with that, have competed against global platforms with in-house solutions, there is definitely a need when you plan multi-market campaigns to have the experts in market that tell you how you have to build your media mix. What I'm also thinking here is standardization will help us to also enable classical AV planners to put digital and CTV and digital broadcast inventory into a normal TV plan, which is necessary because this is what those kind of advertisers that coming from a linear background are looking for when they shift into digital. So it's a technical standardization, but it's also a measurement standardization that we need to have and where we need to understand the things in the right way. So I think technical is definitely important. So the path, the pipes need to be really worked out. It needs to work for everyone. It doesn't matter if you use whatever buying platform, whatever SSP connected to whatever ad server, it is necessary. But I think we also need to understand whenever things are ready, there is a gap of expertise in those areas, especially in new markets, for everyone to understand those things. I think it's very common to do this for native display, which is quite easy. So this is what you do. But in areas like CTV, there is less data possible at the moment, and it was touched in previous panels as well. So there is a huge knowledge necessary to run successful campaigns, but we need to build the foundation for that.
Absolutely. David, your perspective.
Totally agree with my panelists, fellow panelists on this subject, and kind of building on what they both said around both tech and local knowledge, it being critical is something that advertisers need to take into consideration during the planning phase when entering into a new market. And this is really around a nuance related to kind of device distribution and what devices consumers in that country or region have at a disposal to consume the media that, you know, Katie was talking about. And this feeds into kind of Eke's thought around on the ground knowledge, because very much a device can dictate like what measurement capabilities or measurement outcomes are possible to measure. I keep saying measure, but that's in front of mind. But also kind of what buying doors are available as well. Like not all may support kind of programmatic. So there are certain limitations which clients need to factor in because you've got certain set-top box devices that have an IP connection, but won't have the full kind of vast support for the ad delivery, etc., which can impact multiple things. But one of those is how you measure the outcome. So that may define how you plan success when planning those CTV and expanding into those markets.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's I can't believe we're 20 minutes in and we haven't said fragmentation in a panel talking about CTV, but that is evident in everything we're talking about here, isn't it? In terms of devices, behaviors, obviously the content as well. But yeah, clearly that the tech has to work for us to standardize, and TV being local and standards obviously need to be global. Completely agreed.
I think I want to turn this back to you, Tom, and have you answer this question from the buyer's perspective and the sort of challenges that fragmentation brings.
I think it's all about how do you simplify. I think again we're talking about simplifying fragmentation is an incredibly important piece, right? It's about how do you make it simple from what is a relatively simple local world of linear, if we talk about linear budgets primarily, how do you bring those in? And I think I've heard it from all of you so far today as well. It's about, it starts with planning, but obviously you have to get the implementation right and the measurement right ultimately. So yeah, it is, we are in a fragmented world and we need to use our collective minds and technologies to consolidate and bring things together. Being able to make everything simple helps it scale and obviously overall helps it grow. So it's been an exciting journey so far, and I'm sure it's going to be even more so as we go into more markets from here on in.
But it's the point, sorry, one last addition to that, because that is a very interesting thing about we are competing when it comes to scalability against social platforms with a lot of short content, and there is massive scale. But I think our job as well as like from the agencies like Rubem and others is to really point out the value and the scalability of premium content. So because it's about also having enough, not only measurement on this normal KPIs, but it's also about measurement of quality. So what is, so delivering the right brand lift study. So the success of content, the engagement there because it's close to the user. So all those kind of things are very important to drive them as well. I think we need the content providers and the broadcasters who produce this great content, and they're competing against big, massive platforms that have a full paid model, now expanding to a free ad served model, and they need us to also help them to get into the transition to then enable advertisers to spend on high premium content.
Yeah, it's a great point, Becky. You know, it's not all impressions are equal, not all reach is equal as well on the same point. So absolutely, it's about quality and the impact that quality has, and our job to show that with the technology that we have. That's actually a great segue into what could be our last question. Let's see if we can squeeze another one in afterwards. But it's about, we spoke about consumer behaviors, but what about the experience our advertisers are looking to maintain, especially across a complex and nuanced region like Europe? So what advice, I guess, would you have to advertisers in how do they maintain that consistent branding experience, that consistent experience with their campaign across a whole region where things are different, technology is different, and the consumer behaviors are different? Let's go to Eki first for this one. Thanks.
Oh, now I've said almost everything.
To test you again.
Had I known that, I would haven't said that. No, I think it really comes down to the points that we have mentioned earlier. I guess we need to rely as an advertiser, I would say like, hey, test. So please have the courage and go into exploring digital. And I would say there are multiple products outside where agencies have built great solutions across multiple markets to have an easy entry to just prove if a hybrid campaign between linear and digital is working. I think there is a lot of opportunities to test those things if you feel like you cannot handle this on your own or you don't have an in-house expertise. So I think there are multiple ways to test this and also to avoid some of the traps that you can have with local regulations. There are specific rules in market. There are potentially specific technology solutions, as we already have mentioned, and also figuring out what measurement providers are working to really make sure that you're measuring the success for your campaign to generate your findings. I think there's a lot of things that we have already touched on, but the main advice I would give, like, yes, test it. Use the opportunity that TV and CTV is becoming digital. So everything that's starting to be executed and managed out of an ad server is a great piece of software. HBB TV is not available everywhere, but everything that's coming out of an ad server gives you new possibilities. Don't be too much into measuring VCR and CTR. So think about other KPIs when you look at this, and please refer on how you can transition this into a full omni-channel AV campaign. That would be my very short statement on that one, including everything we have mentioned before.
Thanks, okay, great points. David, your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, love to. I can see why people are investing in CTV, but I want to come on to VCR, and I agree, don't focus on VCR. But the reason why people focus on VCR in CTV is, on average, it achieves 96% versus 67% on all other devices. But like Eke said, don't focus on that. There's only a 4% from the 100, and you won't be able to make much ground. But there are other areas and other goals clients could be looking at that will enable them to plan correctly. But the first thing you should do is start measuring. You'd be surprised at how many clients aren't utilizing measurement capabilities available to them today to give them like simple stuff like app transparency, or, you know, CTV viewability, and a wide range of other kind of useful metrics that you would need to ensure that you're able to optimize further down the road. Because not all CTV is created equal, right? There are some unwanted apps, like in digital, versus high quality premium creating made for TV apps. So first and foremost, ensure you're getting that level of transparency. And then once you're getting those, kind of optimizing of that data to drive more strategic outcomes. And then after that, you can kind of make more strategic buys about what you're saying. But I want to come back to the thing that Eke was talking about, which is that premiumness and that difference. And it's one thing that we as an industry could do much better on solving, is that content level transparency in CTV, because we're doing it in a few markets at a very experimental level, but we're not doing it at scale. And as Eke was saying, one of the critical things to kind of, I guess, differentiate CTV from other environments and other ecosystems or walled gardens, etc., is being able to say, this is made for TV. It's an old statement, but made for CTV now, I guess. Quality production, high quality production. Does that come with a higher value for an advertiser, knowing it's that lean back experience and it's that full 30-second ad? So we're yet, as an industry, able to say this show ran with this impression at this time, and this was a brand lift from it. We're getting close, but we need to do a bit more effort there.
Completely agree. Almost at time, but final thoughts from yourself, Katie. I don't want to miss you out.
I feel like, so that I don't say exactly the same things. I think one thing you mentioned earlier, Tom, is this focus around keeping it simple. And ultimately, why would a brand use any channel? It comes down really to incrementality, incremental reach. And I think especially when you're looking at CTV in new markets, you know, brands need to be thinking about their target audiences and how their target audience is consuming TV content generally, and it's a real generalization, but younger audiences in particular are kind of challenging to reach in those like linear environments. And so I think as you're thinking about CTV, one very, very simple approach can be that audience-centric approach, using that streaming TV as part of a wider media plan to drive incremental reach for brands to their audiences.
Great point to finish on. Thank you so much, Kate, and thank you, Eke, David. Enjoyed that. Back to you, Ryan.
Thanks so much, Tom. Yeah, terrific panel there. Thanks so much for hosting that. Yeah, an amazing conversation. Great to know and learn so much about what is going on and hearing about what's happening in those emerging markets and how they really are transforming the connected TV landscape. Obviously, understanding those regional differences is key to building those effective strategies for growth. And we're grateful to the speakers for sharing their insights. So a big thank you to Katie, Tom, David, and Eki. Right then, how's it all doing? Everyone doing well on the call? Still with us? We've got one more amazing session to go. So it's the final session, and it's one that I think will really resonate here. TV metrics and outcomes. We talked a bit about measurement in that previous session, and we know how important it is. I'm looking forward to getting into the metrics and outcomes. So obviously, as connected TV continues to evolve, advertisers are always looking for new ways to measure the effectiveness of their campaigns and to prove that all-important ROI. So how do we define success in this space, and what metrics do matter the most? Well, lucky for you, today we have a panel of industry leaders who will share their expertise on navigating exactly these questions, as well as the tools and techniques that are driving more precise measurement in connected TV. I'm delighted to welcome to the stage Sarah Lewis, the Global Director of Connected TV at Show Heroes. And I'll pass it over to you, Sarah, to introduce your esteemed panel, who are all the perfect people to tell us what's really going on.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone for sticking around. It's obviously our last panel of the day. I think the previous panel actually teed us up really well for this panel. As measurement and metrics in CTV seems to be something very hot topic, and obviously something that we really need to fully understand and have a look at in more depth. So let's go to our wonderful panelists. And if you could just introduce yourselves quickly and your role. Maybe if we start with Anita.
Thanks, Sarah. So my name's Anita Karras. I'm International VP of Insights and Measurement at Teads. For anyone who doesn't know Teads, they are provide digital advertising services, including CTV for publishers, advertisers, and their audiences. So essentially connecting marketers with premium inventory at scale across the globe.
Brilliant. Thank you. David?
So at Magnite, I look after partnerships in the European marketplace. So I've got the absolute pleasure of chatting with a vast array of measurement partners and getting under the skin and the surface of what some of those propositions bring and how we apply them in Magnite's world. And it's an absolute delight to be here, Sarah and Anita and Jack, with you guys. Appreciate the opportunity from the IAB too.
We're very happy to have you. And Jack?
Hello, everyone. I'm also Vice Chairman of the IAB Brand Advertising Committee. I'm advising companies such as Visnet on the CTV arena.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. So let's get to our first question. So let's start off. What are the most important metrics when we're looking at the success of CTV campaigns now? And why do those metrics matter most? So if Jacques, if we go to you for a bit of a global perspective to start with.
Okay. Well, KPIs can be seen in a very, very wide perspective. It could be media, it could be marketing, it could be business. So if I'm focusing on my very campaign right now, I will look for impression, I will look for reach and frequency, I will look for depart, I will look for more and more for each advertising within the campaigns. Because of the DCO on AI now, we can have, you want to have the performance on each creative. So now, if I get the big picture, for me, the biggest maybe is reach and frequency, because I'm always taking care of the user experience. And if you get 10 times the same ads, it's going to be fed up. So reach and frequency is going to be, I think, for me, very important things, which implies cross-device measurement, of course, because you want to make sure that altogether it doesn't get 10 times the same ads. If you want to refine, you will go to a frequency spread to make sure that you get maybe 5 times the ads are not 10 or not true. So this is the first metrics, which I think is important. The second one, will be the incremental reach. It has been said just before, because of the CTV purpose, you want to have additional reach versus TV or versus other media. So this is for me the second, I would say, marketing metrics. And then you can have a more business metrics, which is quite new in the TV arena. Like I want to make sure I have for my money. So I'm not only looking for the notoriety, but I want to see where does this drive business. And this drives, or this create new KPIs, which are quite new in the TV arena. So this for me would be the third things. And the fourth one, I was thinking of it, and we talked with Anita before, is the attention, because attention is quite new. It's more come from the digital arena. Now it comes to the TV arena. And of course, it's a must for the TV because it's a large screen, it's a sound on, it's only a unique ad on the TV. So it got all the assets to become a premium attention. So I think it could be a good KPI and good buster for CTV. Of course, you have brand safety. You have all these traditional KPI, I would say, which are quite important. But maybe a last one, so my kids will like me, is greenhouse gas consumption, because we didn't talk since the beginning of this talk, but if we can have an additional KPI dealing with this carbon estimation, it would be, I think, quite a good KPI. So this is the global picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jacques. So, I mean, you know, we've definitely felt like measurement in CTV has been challenging, but it sounds like there is a lot of development now and a lot of things that you can start to look at. Obviously, Jacques went through quite a few different metrics there. Anita, what would you say is like the most important one for you?
So I think what's being asked a lot of at the moment is definitely that incremental reach versus linear TV. Are we adding incrementality? And from the work that we've done with both LG Ads and Samba, I would like to say that we're seeing a definitive yes in that area. In terms of overlap for campaigns that we've seen between digital and CTV, we've only had sort of about 2%. And what they're hitting is around 71 to 72% of light TV, linear TV viewers versus our linear TV being at the 18% proportion. So we really do see the value of bringing CTV into the mix. But I also kind of wanted to draw on from that, if we actually think of the USP of TV, and this has actually been brought up in some of the previous discussions, for me, it's really about delivering the great content. So we've been talking about this premium inventory that is engaging, but more importantly, creating that emotional connection with the audience to drive that marketing outcome that all marketers are craving, right? So that's why I feel that we actually need the other measures of attention, brand lift, and going into MMM. So really kind of then going into that ROI. So in terms of our measurement suite, we do work with a number of suppliers from the incrementality through to Lumens and T-Visions for attention, on-device and Cint in the brand lift space, and then Circana, Ecometrics in the MMM to really start to give us that holistic picture of what those measurement metrics that matter and take us right the way through the funnel and bring the best of, I suppose, digital to the big screen as well in the process.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you mentioned the kind of emotional connection, because I think that's something almost not completely unique, but quite unique to the big screen, right? We did some research a couple of years ago and have updated it recently. But one thing that we found when we interviewed people about CTV was they watch it with their family. There's this like, you know, there's this shared experience. And that I think that's something we need to remember and kind of really lean into with the types of creatives and things that we do in CTV. So yeah, absolutely. And David, how about you? I mean, you know, measurement is fundamental, of course, on the SSP side. So what do you find is the kind of most important thing to look at?
I've got to say some super strong answers there already on this one, and I'm going to just echo pretty much everything that's been said. But I think, like, if you take that landscape of different measurement alternatives that are out there, if I look at it practically from our perspective, there's very much an evolution of CTV as it kind of starts to break out of this very much upper funnel focus that's been the leader and the driver of this, and that's kind of a if you like a trajectory that's continuing. But we do very much see some of these kind of measurement capabilities as being very additive to each other, actually, and that they go together. We find a lot of really good success with a combination of, effectively, like at the top end, take a look at brand lift, use some incremental reach surveys to just help quantify and measure the size of that audience, which is genuinely unique, over and above that kind of linear viewership that you can reach through CTV. And let's also not forget, good solid classic audience measurement. So if you put those three together, then really we get to is a really solid kind of storytelling around the fact that using a combination of those tools, you can deliver that message back to the buyer to give them the confidence, which is what all this measurement does at the end of the day. It's building that confidence that not only did I find like a new audience for my creative, they were absolutely on target, and I've left them with a message that resonated with them. That brand lift survey helps me know that it's not just a fleeting experience of an ad and it's gone. There's been an impact on the consumer there. And I think if I build on that just a little more, is that's sort of where we sit at the moment. But there's definitely gradual moves more into the attribution end of the scale, as somebody mentioned earlier on, very much that move towards more performance marketing rather than just that kind of upper funnel stuff at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned attribution there. That's something that we're seeing quite a lot of advancements in. It's helping to kind of better connect CTV ad exposure to, real world outcomes. How can advertisers leverage that advantage? Who'd like to go next? David, you mentioned it, so I'm going to go to you first.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things I would say on this is it's been up until sort of recently-ish a semi kind of disconnected experience in some ways, right? Because you've got this wonderful viewing environment which captures the consumer, and that's a great place to be. But it's quite hard to actually then connect that with an action the consumer can take as a result. And we do see sort of a steady growth in the use of things like QR codes, which are they're a great step forwards because they bring a bit of more of a direct connection between like the ad view and the action in an online sense. And that's already quite a significant step on from those modeling tools, which they'll do some sort of time-based work effectively to kind of track website visiting and ads, and just they'll model all very valuably, but they'll model that kind of activity. I would say looking beyond that, there's other kind of tools and techniques that are growing in this industry. We've seen kind of clean rooms coming onto the scene a bit more as a way to again try and join those endpoints together, the sort of ad served audience with a loyalty audience from a CDP, for example. But you've got a new class of almost like persistent ID solutions kind of evolving in the European market as well, which I think also represent a really interesting opportunity to more clearly know that it's the same person who viewed the ad, who visited the website, who maybe even with some CDP connectivity turned up in a store and bought the product. So I think there's quite a lot of evolution going on there for sure. And I, in particular, from a personal perspective, feel quite excited about the overlaps there between where CTV engages and where retail media opportunities sit.
Yeah, definitely. And Jacques, what about you?
I was smiling because attribution, when we look at attribution, you have and I'm sure Anita or we talk further about this, but you have a emerging solution, very complex or very, very light solution. But as you just say, a QR code, when you scan a QR code, you have a direct dotted.
It's a very purposeful.
And I was working with a cloud pass company. They scan the code and then it directly go into your wallet, because when you watch a movie or TV, usually 80% of the people, they have their mobile with them. So scanning it, you just have a direct link and you have the direct connection, direct attribution. So it's quite fun to see that it could be either with very complex things, with IDs, we will talk maybe later, with IDs, with hash IPs and so forth, combining solution, or it could be the QR code.
Yeah, I think maybe a combination of the both, right? We want to see like how much that purposeful, very valuable user interaction is, but also there's different types of user interactions, maybe people who don't scan a QR code but do still take action after seeing the ad. So I think a combination.
What I like with the QR code, but it's not the only solution. What I like is it respects the user experience. When you watch an ad, maybe you are interested by the ad. Maybe you want it for later. You want to buy it later or watch it later. So you just scan it and you have it later on your mobile. And then you can still watch your show and then you go for your ad. And I think it's kind of interesting way of respecting the user experience.
Yeah, definitely. And Anita, you've worked in that space quite a lot.
Yeah, I think just building on sort of the previous panelist answers, I think the QR code is interesting because if you take it on its own, you go, well, that's a small sample, right, that's interacting. But what we found through the research we've done is by that very presence, it captures attention, right? Yeah. Having a QR code makes it different. It makes it stand out at the moment. So there's more value than just purely that interplay between the QR code and the scanning. And things that we're playing with, kind of, I suppose, on that creative front is what else can we do when we bring digital to the big screen? So we're working with a number of suppliers. I'll mention a couple today. So Say It Now, for example, connects native video with Alexa. So that's opened up a huge range of innovative sort of opportunities from a marketer's perspective. So if you are a brand such as something, I don't know, like Pizza Hut, and you have an ad on CTV, that could link directly to your mobile Alexa app, offering an immediate voucher code to the retailer sort of site. Enabling that further sort of dialogue and interaction in a fully consented, again, environment for you to interact at your own time and in your own leisure, which again is this permission-based and adding value. So for me, all of this privacy has been great that it's come to the fore. It's put the consumer back into control, and it's about how do we add value and really get that value exchange and think about innovative solutions to work within those parameters and that framework. Similarly, audio stack, completely different. That's kind of using AI to localize sort of video creatives on CTV. So that adds a layer of personalization and a call to action. So you'll have accents that are familiar to you with your surroundings and actually be directing you to the local automotive store, which is round the corner from your household. So very much kind of starts to bring it back into the place and space of you and what can be actionable to you. So I think there's really interesting call to actions that are now evolving from that we are sort of seeing great immediate kind of results on the back end through the data that we're bringing to light.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right with the idea that you can kind of scan and then do that at your leisure. That fits in so well with the CTV screen because it's that real lean back leisure time kind of watching. And so being able to have that interaction, but also then, you know, have that sent to your phone and have a look at it later. It's into the experience perfectly.
I think just one more thing that's just kind of come to mind. So they're very much sort of performance driven, but we've also seen quite a lot of work with luxury brands where we've brought AR virtual try-ons to the big screen. So that's basically repurposing assets that they've got elsewhere. And that again is bringing a whole new kind of dimension on a big screen in your living room, seeing that really sort of luxurious, immersive brand coming to life. So again, that's more of a brand experience, but I feel there's again incremental value by being able to bring that into to the home screen kind of space.
Definitely. When you've got the attention, let's make it as creative and engaging as possible. Definitely. And how can advertisers like align their CTV metrics with their broader marketing goals and, you know, ensure consistency across omnichannel campaigns? Because that's something that has obviously been very challenging. You know, we have, you know, so many different screens that we need to reach people across now. How can we do that? David, if you want to start.
Yeah, you've said the word there, challenging, Sarah. And I think as an industry, we've been finding this challenging for a while, but I feel confident there are some pretty hefty players that are busy, you know, working out answers to that. And like we often say cross-channel, we say omni-channel, we sort of interchange these things quite a bit actually. And although there's an awful lot of industry focus on that kind of one true, let's say, single currency, approach to this measurement piece. And we absolutely should be pursuing that as an industry, because that's really where it helps the kind of advertisers, the buy sides, have that clarity to inform some of their kind of media buying plans. I think there's opportunities for us in the nearer term, though, to look a little bit more at some of the kind of individual channels, because although we might not be able to directly compare the things like a CTV channel compared to other classic sort of online video channels, they behave differently. I mean, the measurement methods are different by almost by definition. It is really hard to find a consistent way to measure across all of them. And I do very much feel like there's an opportunity for us as an industry to get behind some consistency, perhaps at a channel level, and then work out between us how we can properly interchange those in a way that is a good approximation of, for the time being, what a single kind of true currency piece would be. And I know there's, there are some elements of that evolving that we see already. But yeah, challenging, especially, even if I say this, like, especially if you pour in different European markets as well. You've got, different chicks, you've got different providers of, audience panels. There's an awful lot into that bucket. So I'm a bit of a sort of recommender for just kind of simplify the problem a little bit, find something that can be consistent in a channel, work that up, then, do the same for the other channels, and we'll at least be moving forwards a step while the bigger brains are working on the true single currency piece.
Yeah, good advice there for sure. Jacques, what's your kind of thoughts on this?
Now, I understand it's a challenge, but for me, it's there are hundreds of solutions, but we can centralize them. The first thing is centralizing the data, because they're all coming from everywhere. So we talk about CDP, DMPs, clean rooms. So the first thing is to make all these work together. You may have IPs, you may have IDs, you may have mobile phone, you may have emails. You have to unify that, taking into account GDPR, of course, and making sure that you get unified. So starting from multi-sources to a centralized database. For me, this is the first thing. Second thing would be, I would say, unify IDs. You have people working, creating IDs, but only for their own garden, I would say. And we have to find IDs we can work cross-platform. So there are some now on the market, and I think it's good to go. And the last thing is, I would say, the multi-touch attribution, I would say, where you would say maybe people who come on the shop, not only because of your ad, but because of multiple ads in different channels. So addressing multi-touch, we solve this. So this is for me the speaking multi-touch, unique IDs, and centralized data.
Yeah, I think that's something we've inherited even from the kind of old online video last click attribution days.
Yeah.
We oversimplified and had to really kind of bring it back and be like actually understanding the impact of multi-touch for sure. Yeah, definitely. And Anita, how about you?
Yeah, I think building on that, I mean, if we step back and think about ultimately what are all marketers trying to do? They're trying to shift products, and it may be building the brand to shift products and that favorability, which then brings back marketing or media mix modeling into that. And that's where, to Jacques' point of kind of having these what are seen as disparate data points, bring them all together to use the beauty of mass and statistical analysis to say, how do these things interplay and work together to drive results? And then what are each of those mediums doing, both in the short and the long term? Obviously, you've got to have good data in to get great assets out. But for me, I'm a real fan in really sort of exploring that further, because to me, that starts to give a level playing field, because I absolutely agree. We shouldn't put everything into one metric to define it, because they've all got unique talents. They've all got unique opportunities. Radio works in higher sort of awareness, and then you've got sort of, that emotional connection through the big screen, and then you've got sort of driving performance with digital, very generalistic, but all of those things have a role to play. And we know that there is an interplay. We are exposed across multiple devices. So it's not one against another. It's understanding the beauty of working across the mix. But from being a responsible marketeer, you want to know how much weight to putting in each of those elements. And hence, that's where I feel the media mix modeling can really start to play when done well. So it's in all of our interests to make sure that we've got robust and rigorous data that we can feed in and power these models to bring out the sort of results that enable us to sort of isolate out those impacts.
Yeah, adjusting the things like the creative to those different kind of purposes and experience as well, I think is really important, because like you said, you have different connections and different ways of interacting with different media. So let's like make sure that we're kind of adjusting that creative to fit that, and then we can kind of measure that off the back of that. Really important for sure. So we haven't got much time left, unfortunately, but I'm just going to ask, what are some common pitfalls or challenges in measuring CTV, and what would be your advice to kind of avoid that? David, let's start.
Yeah, I would say like one of the things we bump into the most is there's still quite a dependence on panel-based approaches for some of these kind of measurement techniques. And like if you're in the US, that's not an issue because the scale's there. But when you're running multi-geo campaigns across the European marketplace and you're embracing the UK and Italy and Spain, France, Germany, they're all very different in terms of the scale of the campaign in the first place, the kind of size of the panels. So like one of the bigger pitfalls that we kind of see and bump into an awful lot is just that raw minimum viable scale before you can actually bring some of these panel-based tools to bear and to use them, particularly when you're looking for that sort of cross-region type of measurement solution. But on the plus side, there are a number of partners that we work with they're getting a little bit more into that kind of direct attribution space. You know, ACR data was mentioned earlier on, which kind of is very much walking down that path. It bumps a little bit in its own way into sort of OEM kind of, you know, boundaries, let's say, down that. But it's like pros and cons of each of these sort of solutions. So I think like that biggest challenge that we see is really just getting the right combination of those measurement things to fit the size and scale that's meaningful in each of those regions, so you can combine it into a useful campaign. I'm going to roll it out there. You know, test and learn is the advice. Like you've just got to try this stuff out in market and see what works for you well, what's successful, and what things fit together best.
Yeah, definitely. And Jacques, what do you think is?
I will be quick because only 2 minutes left for Anita.
Wait, sorry, you got to be quick.
No, when I look back at all we have seen of the pitfall, platform fragmentation, inconsistent ID, problem of attribution, overexposure, all this. I think for me the biggest pitfall, and we have seen that with the digital TV task force at IAB France, which is led by Stéphane Bismuth from Bisnet. They address this, and it will be coming soon. For me, the biggest pitfall, there were 2 players, now there are 3. Because before you had the ISPs, you have the podcasters, and now you have the TV suppliers, and they all want to play their game, which is, I understand, they all want to take that, but if they all go in their own direction, I'm afraid that the pie, the advertising pie on the CTV will reduce, because as it was very nicely said before, the competitor is not only TV, is also social media. People, all the money is going there. So they have to merge together. They have a chance, because now if you go to Meta, TikTok, YouTube, Amazon Prime Video, you have 4 buying systems. So let's make a unique buying system for CTV, and they will gain a lot of time and a lot.
Wouldn't that be nice for sure? Anita, just very quickly, if you give your last.
So pitfalls, complexity, fragmentation. How do we as a media supplier respond to that? It's in our interest to simplify. So we thought about our inventory, developed Reachcast, which basically means you can buy by context regardless of screen. So that really starts to go into that contextual world. And then on the measurement front, kind of getting that curated list. So, you know, people come to us, they say they want reach, attention, brand lift, and we say, this is how to do. And I think through that it's in our interest, but also our job to give that curation back to our clients, and to continue to push those measurement suppliers to make sure we're as robust, rigorous, and as inclusive across all media as we can be.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much to everyone for joining, and thank you for watching.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah, Jacques, David, Anita, for all of your wonderful contributions. It was great to hear those perspectives on CTV metrics. Some really interesting points raised, and yeah, a really big thank you again. So as we wrap up today's virtual CTV event, I wanted to take a moment to thank you all. To thank all of our amazing, incredible speakers, moderators, panelists, and of course, you at home attendees. Your insights, engagements, and contributions make today's discussion both valuable and thought-provoking. So it really does mean a lot for you all giving your time to be here. We've covered a lot of ground, from privacy and consent all the way through to the shift to streaming, the opportunities in new markets, and finally the essential role metrics and outcomes in CTV play. It's clear that connected TV is not just a growing part of the advertising ecosystem, it's a transformative force that is reshaping how we reach, engage, and measure audiences. I hope that today has given you all actionable takeaways and fresh perspectives to carry forward into your work. Whether you're navigating regulatory challenges, exploring new markets, or fine-tuning your own connected TV strategies, it's critical that we keep learning from each other and driving innovation together. Here at IAB Europe, we remain committed to supporting this growth and collaboration within the digital advertising community. If you'd like to continue these conversations or get more involved in our initiatives, please don't hesitate to get involved with our team. A quick reminder, today's event has been recorded and we'll be sharing the sessions and key takeaways on our website in the coming days. So if you missed any part of the day or you just want to revisit those insights, everything will be available to you. We also have another great day coming up from the IAB Europe, our virtual programmatic day that will take place on the 6th of November. This will be a hybrid event with an in-person element taking place in Berlin. So if you're in Berlin or you can travel to Berlin, please do get there. The virtual programmatic day brings together industry experts, thought leaders to explore the latest trends, drivers, and barriers impacting programmatic trading across Europe. Then on the 16th of October, we have our annual Great Debate on Trust and Transparency. In this event, leading industry experts will share their insight on key topics driving trust and transparency in digital advertising today, including emerging channels, sustainability, AI, and much, much more. Don't miss this opportunity to hear what should be on everyone's agenda to shape a more transparent and trustworthy digital landscape of the future. To find out more about how you can attend these events, either in person or virtually, please follow the link from the IAB Europe's events webpage, which should be appearing in the drop in the chat box. And finally, once again, thank you all for tuning in today. We really appreciate your time. Have a good day. Thank you.